there, I'm Jeanette Lane for Simply Cards and Papercraft, and in today's video I'm sharing how to make a mixed media all-occasion card using the exclusive gifts found in Simply Cards and Papercraft issue 186. Here's the card I'll be showing you how to make, and I'm really excited about it because I love the sampling of Ranger stamp and stencil sets that are included in this issue. They're perfect for trying mixed media if that's something that you've been wanting to do. So let's get started on that tutorial. So to start off our mixed media card, I have a piece of white cardstock here, and I'm going to do a quick Distress Oxide blended background. Now this is great for adding color and interest to the background of your mixed media card, and I personally tend to enjoy colorful backgrounds. So I'm going to start off with, not peacock feathers, I'm going to start off with spun sugar. So spun sugar, picked raspberry, and peacock feathers. And I'm going to start off with the lightest color, which is spun sugar. And I'm just going to pick it up with my this isn't a mini ink blending tool. This is a Smoothie Blender. I usually use mini ink blending tools when I'm working with distress inks, which are different than oxides. Okay, so I'm starting off with the spun sugar, just doing little circular motions onto my cardstock, and then just blending that in as best as I can. I hope that color is coming up on camera. It might be a little bit too light, but you'll see it. I'm just adding more and more color on top, and you'll see it just a little bit. You'll be able to see it. It'll be more visible. There we go. Okay, so there is the spun sugar. Moving on to picked raspberry. And I'm going to start not here at the white. I'm going to start probably right there, right over the spun sugar. And I feel that gives a better blend. So I know it's tempting to start on the white, but just go right over your previous color, and then you can blend it out. I'm going to show you how to blend that out in just a bit, but I'm just doing the same thing as with the spun sugar, just little circular motions all across my card. And then I can go back now with the spun sugar, and I'm going to blend this line right here where the two colors meet. And you get some nice blended colors, and then we're going to move on to the blue, which is peacock feathers. This is one of my favorite Tim Holtz colors, Distress Oxide colors. And to not get my fingers all inky, I'm just going to grab a Post-it note and put that right here. It's both to not get my fingers inky, but also to not get fingerprints in my oxide blending. So peacock feathers, I'm going to start at the bottom, just because I want the more concentrated blue along the bottom and not necessarily right by the picked raspberry. So blending, 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 lots of blending. And if you have a moment, let me know in the comments if you've tried Distress Oxide, if you like them, maybe you prefer Distress inks. Let me know what your favorite colors are with Distress Oxides. I personally love peacock feathers. I think that's probably my favorite. And also broken china, just blues in general. You'll find that in a lot of the videos that I do, I'm always using broken china especially, but peacock feathers as well. All right, so now that I've put the peacock feathers down, I'm going to go back with the picked raspberry. And I'm going to blend the peacock feathers and the picked raspberry. So just where those two meet, you can see it turn into almost like a purpley color. All right, and there is our blended background. Very nice, almost like an ombre effect. And now we can move on to the next step. Next up, I'm going to do some stamping. So I'm going to grab the Wendy Vecchi Make Art Stamp and Stencil, and I'm going to grab these little polka dots here. I really like them. They're like tiny, like a cluster of outline circles. And what I'm going to do is use the respective ink to stamp just a little bit of this pattern across my background. So here's my card background thus far. I messed up here on accidentally got a little bit of the acrylic block onto there, but it's okay because I'm going to be covering that up with some additional layers in just a bit. Next up, I want to activate the oxides with some water and just add kind of like a water droplet effect. So I'm going to spritz my background with, here's my little mini spritzer, there's water inside, and I'm just going to spritz to a light little mist over it. And then I'm going to grab some kitchen roll and just absorb that excess water. And up close, you can see the water droplet effect. I want to add some texture paste to my card background, but first I want to make sure it's completely dry because I did just spritz it with water, so I'm just going to blast it with my heat tool for just a few seconds. If you find that your card is warping with the heat, maybe remove, just pull the heat tool just a little bit further back so it's not so hot, and also you can flip your card over and heat the back side so that it kind of warps back into place. Now before I add my texture paste, I wanted to distress the edges of my card to give it just like a grungy kind of messy effect. So what I'm doing is grabbing my Tim Holtz paper distressor and I'm just going to go along the edges. Just back and forth along the edges, distressing my paper. So here's what our card looks like thus far. You can see there the edges are distressed. Now I can move on to my texture paste. So I'm going to grab the Wendy Vecchi Make Art stencil, and here it is. What I'm going to do is place that, I want the dark blue to be along the bottom. So I'm going to place that just right there on my card. And then I'm grabbing my texture paste. This is Aladine 3D Texture Paste in white. So there it is, and I'm going to grab a spatula, and I'm going to pick up some of this texture paste. So here is my spatula with my texture paste, and I've got about a toothpaste sized amount here. So whatever it is that you put on your toothbrush, about that size. Maybe you like a lot of toothpaste, I'm not sure, but that's about how much I put on my toothbrush. Also notice that I put the texture paste on the bottom side of the spatula. I feel that's so much easier to manipulate and maneuver than to put the texture paste on top of your spatula. My stencil is in place and I have a fierce grip on that, so just putting a lot of pressure down. But if you feel safer using some washi tape to just washi all this down and make sure it doesn't shift around, you can do that. I'm going to skip that part and I'll probably regret it later, but for now I'm just going to have a fierce death grip on this. And again, you can see I'm laying down that texture paste in one direction, spreading it out as evenly as I can. And I'm going to pick up some more here and repeat the process, just going in one direction. All right, so now I'm going to lift up my stencil and hopefully reveal a very nice little textured pattern here. Yay, wonderful. So here is my stenciled texture paste up close. Now you might want to take your heat tool and speed up the drying process. However, you want to be careful because it might burn and it might bubble. Now, if you don't mind some brown, your white texture paste turning a little bit brown, then go ahead and do that. Or if you don't mind the bubbling, then you are free to use a heat tool. But you might want to test it out beforehand on maybe a scrap piece of cardstock to see how your texture paste will react. Some texture paste take heat a lot better than others. Some burn instantly, some bubble instantly. So always check beforehand on a scrap piece of paper. Now here's a tip. Make sure that once you use your stencil that you clean off the texture paste right away, because it might dry and get gunky and it's really making it harder on yourself to clean. So make sure you clean and dry that as best as you can, as quickly as you can. Looks like when it's all done. I've done some movie magic and done this sample beforehand. I just wanted to make sure that this was all dry before we moved on to the next steps. So I'm going to set this aside and move on to my decoupaged flower and also all these other layers on my card. Now for this decoupaged flower here, what I did was stamp the floral stamp in, again, the Wendy Vecchi Make Art Stamp and Stencil. So this is the floral stamp that I used. I stamped it on white 4 separate times using Distress Oxide and Peacock feathers. And then I fussy cut certain sections, and then we're going to layer those up. But before I layer them up and glue them one on top of each other, like so, I'm going to ink them up just a bit, add some glitter for interest. Now, this is a quick way to do decoupaged flowers with stamps. I have a full tutorial on the Craft Stash YouTube channel for how to do that, and I will make sure to link that video below in the video description. Now, before I layered it, like I mentioned, I want to ink this up, so I'm going to be using Wilted Violet Distress Oxide just to add some color on the edges. Now that I've inked those edges of my floral layers with Wilted Violet, I wanted to kind of age them just a little bit, give them a more grungy look. So I'm going to take some Distress ink in Frayed Burlap, and I'm going to use my mini ink blending tool just to darken up just the edges of my flower. I also wanted to add some sparkle to my flower layers. I'm going to use the Spectrum Noir Sparkle Glitter Brush Pens. Notice how I'm only adding this sparkle to the edges of my flower layers, except this last layer because that's going to be visible, so I can kind of go heavy-handed with the sparkle there. Now that my sparkle is dry, I'm going to add some foam tape to my different layers as I assemble my flower just to give it some depth. So here is my decoupaged flower all assembled. If I turn it there, you can kind of see the depth that it has now with the foam tape. The next step is to create these heat embossed leaves here, these little elements here. And what I've done for that is I've stamped on vellum with some Wow embossing ink using this one. So using this leaf stamp here, and this is from the same set. Dilutions, but it's the dilution stamp. So I grabbed this little stamp here and stamped it multiple times onto some vellum and then heat embossed that in white. And the embossing powder that I used is Cosmic Shimmer in True White, so I used these two. Did some heat embossing there and then fussy cut these out so that I can use them for some interest on my card front. So I'm fussy cutting my leaves, and you'll notice that I'm not cutting right up to the embossing. I'm leaving a border all the way around. I find that if you fussy cut too close to some embossing, sometimes it crumbles, so you don't want that effect. It'll just crack and crumble. So I'm just leaving a little border all around my leaves here. I want to give my card sort of a grungy feel, so it's like feminine, but it's also grungy and edgy. So what I'm going to do is take some cardstock and just tear some strips. So I have 2 strips here, so I have this one in blue, and this is one that I've just torn. What you do is you just take kind of roughly the size that you want, and you just tear it. So you just do a nice little tear all the way across. If it gets that little frayed edge there, that's okay. I think it adds interest to my card. So this one is a good size. Let me see. Or maybe this one is a little bit bigger. I'm happy with the little one, I think. And then I have some cardstock with a fun little musical print on it. So again, I'm just going to tear this. And I'm going to tear down this strip here. So here are my 2 torn pieces of cardstock that I'm going to be using. Now I want to ink these up. So I'm going to grab my little sponge. Where's my sponge? There it is. So I'm going to grab my little sponge here and just ink this up with some peacock feathers. I don't know, I felt like the light blue is a little too light, so I'm just inking up my piece of scrap here. I've added some distressed oxide to these scraps. I might add more color in just a bit. I want to see what it looks like once I layer it up. But before I move on to gluing things down, I want to stamp this strip here with the Make Art sentiment in the Wendy Becky stamp and stencil set here that's included in this amazing gift. I think this is a great gift because you get so many styles of stamps and stencils, so you can kind of test them out, see what you like. So I'm mounting that onto my stamp block. I'm going to be using some Memento ink. London Fog is the color, and the reason I'm going with this ink is I wanted something that was grayish, and I didn't want to use the Frayed Burlap. So I'm going to stamp my sentiment right about there. There's my stamp sentiment, there you see it. So now I'm going to grab this and kind of see how I want to arrange these. Let's see. Yes, so this is gonna do, what I'm gonna do next is take my scissors here and just trim this side. And now I'm going to grab my paper distresser again and just fray this edge here, distress this edge. I wanna make this bottom layer even grungier, so what I'm gonna do is just crinkle this up, wrinkle it up, and then unravel it, and it's got some fun little wrinkles on it. Gives it some added interest there, so that will go right on top. That looks good. I also want to add some of this frayed burlap to the edges of these scraps here, these torn scraps. Notice when I went over the wrinkles in my paper with the frayed burlap, they got defined. So that's just a really fun and easy effect to add. So that's going to be layered there. That's going to go on top like so. Okay, I'm really happy with how this is looking. I want to add some droplets to my two little scraps here just so that it matches the rest of my card. So I'm just going to spritz this. And then I'm going to take my kitchen roll and pick up that excess. And then I'm going to dry this with my heat tool. So now that that's dry, I can add some more frayed burlap to the edges of my background, my original background here, just to make everything more uniform, more grungy. Now, if you don't like that grungy effect, no worries. What's great about mixed media is that you can really make it your own. So you can do a more clean and simple style of mixed media, or you can go grungier. It's completely up to you. So I have all the elements of my card. Now, before I start gluing anything down, I wanted to get some of this little string here. Now, what I've done is I've taken some regular size twine. So here's some twine, and I have some in white. Now, you can leave the twine as is, but if you want some thinner strands, which is what I did, then what you do is just pull the twine apart. There's usually 4 strands, sometimes more, to make one piece of twine. I believe this has 4. As you unravel the threads, you'll get some thinner string to use for your mixed media projects. So you don't really need to buy any special string. Just find some baker's twine in your stash, or you can also use sewing thread, and you can add some fun texture to your card. It is my thin thread, and I want to say that you can probably unravel this even further, but I'm just gonna stop there, and I'm gonna set that aside, and I'm gonna start gluing everything down. I want to add more sparkle to my card. So I'm going to go back with my sparkle brush pen and just go over my stenciling, go over my sentiment, just go sparkle crazy. Here's what my card looks like thus far, and I wanted to add some more interest to it, some more texture. So I'm going to add some pearls. So these are Anita's pearl wheel, and I'm going to grab some of these pink pearls here. Now for my card base, I've just taken a piece of purple cardstock, scored and folded it, trimmed it down to size to give us a nice little border here around our card front. So just going to flip this around. It's a little bit messy on the back side, and add some more adhesive there. And I'm done with my card. Don't forget to pick up the latest issue of Simply Cards and Papercraft so that you can have a play with these Ranger stamp and stencils included with the issue. I mean, if you've never tried mixed media, this is just a great way to get your feet wet with mixed media and get started on that. It's really fun. It can be intimidating, but you've seen this video. You just take it layer by layer, step by step, you know, have fun, experiment, get a little dirty. It's a little messy, but that's okay. You can end up with some really fun results. I'm Jeanette Lane for Simply Cards and Papercraft, and I'll see you in a video really soon.